Hey guys, in today's video, we're doing a deep dive into what's the deal with 2.4 gigahertz wireless systems, specifically when it comes to music gear. We're going to understand what it is, why it can be problematic, how to improve the chances of this type of gear working well, and I'm also going to give you my recommendations on 2.4 gigahertz gear that I think is worth the price point and ones which I think you should stay away from. So I've reviewed so many products in 2.4 gigahertz, and in those videos I always just kind of briefly mentioned 2.4 is crowded and it's on the same frequency as Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and stuff like that, so you can get dropouts. That is still true, but in this video, we're going to go a lot deeper and also go over tips on how to improve your chances of your 2.4 gigahertz system working. So if you plan to use any 2.4 gigahertz wireless, definitely should watch this video to get an understanding about it. I am going to be giving away a 2.4 gigahertz wireless in-ear monitor system to one of my subscribers, so don't forget to stick around to see how you can do that. Before we get started, I post videos like this all the time, stuff on wireless, in-ear monitors, MIDI programming, gear reviews, finding cheap stuff for musicians on Amazon, just a music tech channel in general. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this in the future, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to ring the bell to be notified when I put out new videos, and hitting the thumbs up button is a free way to support the channel. Also, don't forget to follow me on my Instagram at ScottYuleMusic. All right, let's find out what's the deal with 2.4 gigahertz. Okay, so just a basic understanding of wireless. So instead of using a cable for a wireless system to work, it needs to transmit over radio waves. And within those radio waves, there's certain frequencies that the transmitter and the receiver communicate on. So for example, this is my Sennheiser system. Right now, it is set to transmit on 500.100 megahertz, and the receiver is set to the same channel and is getting the signal. There are a ton of different options of frequencies that wireless can choose to transmit on. Some common ones are between 470 to 600 megahertz, especially in the United States. There's also 902 to 928 megahertz. There's also 5.8 gigahertz, but more specifically, we're talking about 2.4 gigahertz. That is the frequency band that these wireless have chose to transmit on. The 2.4 gigahertz technically ranges from 2.4 to 2.5 gigahertz, although technically, so it's not from 2.4 to 2.5, it's 2.412 gigahertz up to 2.484 gigahertz. Can you tell that I had to read from my notes in order to get that right? And we're going to explain why here in a minute. So 2.4 is chosen because it's a universally allowed frequency. It's a universal channel that you can use all over the world. So using sites like the Sennheiser Frequency Finder, you can say which frequencies are allowed to be used in your country or your region and stuff like that. So for example, you can see that 470 up to 608 megahertz is legal in the US. But then if you click Portugal, you can use 470 up to 694 megahertz. There's other things like you can see that 488 to 494 is not allowed in Hawaii, and so on and so forth. The thing that's nice about 2.4 is it's universally allowed everywhere. Basically, you don't have to worry about which band to get based on where you're performing or what country you're in or anything like that. One of my first in-ear monitor systems that I got, I had to get rid of because in the US, the FCC, they basically said all this wireless gear that was in 600 megahertz and higher is now illegal to use, and the system that I had was in that frequency, so we weren't allowed to use those anymore, became illegal, and I had to get a new system. So that's what's really nice about 2.4. However, because of that, because it's allowed everywhere, a lot of things use 2.4. So it's allowed to be used everywhere, but because of that, it can be very crowded. So since basically anyone can use 2.4 gigahertz, a lot of things do. Wi-Fi routers, Bluetooth, microwave ovens, garage door openers, baby monitors, and more things like that already use this system. If too many people are using a certain frequency, that means you're going to get dropouts. That's true about any frequency spectrum, not just 2.4. If somebody's already transmitting on 500.100 megahertz and I try to turn on a wireless system on 500.100 megahertz, it's not going to work. One of those systems is going to, one or both of those systems are going to drop out. That's just the way that wireless works. Okay, but it's more than just that the network is overused and overcrowded. So here you go. This is where the deep dive part really starts. So here we go. Okay, so the 2.4 gigahertz frequency spectrum technically only has 11 channels to choose from, and only 3 of them are non-overlapping channels. What the hell does that mean, right? That's what we're going to go over. So look at this graph.
Look at this graph.
or look at this chart. So if you look at here, there are 11 channels to choose from in the 2.4 gigahertz frequency range. Now, technically there are 14 channels, but 12 through 14 are not allowed in the United States. I'm not really going to go over that. I will link a couple of articles down below on where you can find out more information about that. So, but channels 1 through 11 are the ones that are allowed to be used in the United States. So in the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which again is from 2.4 to 2.5, but using this, you'll see why it's actually 2.412 up to 2.484 gigahertz. Quick note, this chart is in megahertz. So you can see like right here, it says 2,412 megahertz. That's the exact same thing as 2.412 gigahertz. It's the exact same thing. So channel 1, the frequency is 2.412 gigahertz, but it's not just exactly only on 2.412. It has a range from the low of 2.401 up to 2.423. So if you think about it, a frequency that's on, 500 megahertz does not just transmit on 500 megahertz. There's going to be a little bit of a range that frequency from the low to the high. There's the center point. The center point of channel 1 is 2.412, but the range is 2.401 up to 2.423. So then channel 2, the center frequency, and that's why I like this chart. It seems to make the most sense. But channel 2, the center frequency is 2.417, with the low being 2.406 up to 2.428, and then so on and so forth up to channel 11. Remember, 12, 13, and 14 aren't allowed. So we're looking at channel 11, which is 2.451 all the way up to 2.473. If we did include up to channel 14, the center frequency of channel 14 is 2.484. That's why the range of 2.4 is technically 2.412 all the way up to 2.484. Does that make sense? I told you this was a deep dive, so it's pretty complicated. But the width of each channel is 22 megahertz. So again, look at the low frequency of channel 1, 2.401, up to 2.423. That is a range of 22 megahertz. Let's look at channel 6, 2.426 up to 2.448. That's another range of 22 megahertz. So each of the 11 channels spans the range of 22 megahertz. So if you think of the math, 2.4 gigahertz, again, just let's just even out the numbers just for simplicity. That's only 100 megahertz of range. That's all that you have in there. So how do you fit 11 channels, or 14 channels technically? How do you fit 14 channels with 22 megahertz of bandwidth or space in each of those? The only way to do that is there's going to be overlap. So look at channel 1, 2.401 up to 2.423. So if you look at channel 3, that starts on 2.411. So there's already overlap there. Even if you go to channel 5, that one, the low, is from 2.421, right? So there's still overlap from channel 1's upper frequency megahertz of 2.423. So the only way that you have channels that have zero overlap is if you use channel 1, channel 6, and channel 11. Those are the only three that have zero overlap with each other. So if you're using something on channel 1 and someone's using something on channel 3, there already is some overlap. So you have the chance of getting interference, whether that interference causes a dropout or just a lack of range. You used to be able to go 50 feet, now you can only go 20 or something like that. Overlap is going to cause interference. You only have 3 channels in 2.4 gigahertz that don't overlap. Channels 1, channel 6, and channel 11. So that means on an already crowded and overly used network and overly used frequency, you only have 3 frequencies that you can transmit on, or 3 channels that have zero overlap. All right, that was already a lot. All right, have you made it this far? You should give yourself a medal because you haven't clicked off yet. Feel free to add to the conversation or do any corrections down below. I'm definitely curious to hear about your guys' experience and knowledge about this topic, so please leave comments down below. If you do want to find out more info about this, I will post links in the description that will give you more detailed articles to videos and to written articles to explain more about 2.4 gigahertz. But does that mean that 2.4 is completely useless? You should never use 2.4? No, I don't think that's true at all. In my experience, my personal experience, most of them work well, probably about 90% of the time. This is before I knew all of this stuff, actually. This was just going, oh, it's 2.4, it could get dropouts. Overall, I just say that it's about 90% success rate, at least with me personally. Some people have better, some people have worse. It just depends. Which leads to, now I'm going to tell you tips to improve the chances of your 2.4 gigahertz system working. So first of all, keep it away from Wi-Fi routers. So if you're using, a Wi-Fi router with like an in-ear monitor setup, which is what I do. I either use a Behringer X32, a Behringer XR18, or my Singer has an XR16. But those are digital mixers, and the X-Airs have, a built-in router, or, we plug in an external router and use that, and then we control the mix with our phones, and we control our in-ear mixes that way. I did a whole video explaining how to do that if you are interested. So one of the worst things that you can do is plug the wireless directly into the router or directly into the mixer right by that Wi-Fi router. Keep it about 10 feet or more away from Wi-Fi routers. That definitely improves your chance of it working. I've tested that multiple times. When I try out 2.4 gigahertz gear, I'll put it right by the router and just see how it works. Some of them work, some of them don't. It depends on what channel it's transmitting on. But every time that I do get interference and I move it away, it at least improves the interference. So keep it away from Wi-Fi routers. That's tip number one. Tip number two is I would not be using a bunch of 2.4 gigahertz all at the same time. We've already gone over that there's 11 channels available in the best possible scenario, 3 that are non-overlapping. So in one of my band setups, we have 3 wireless mics, 3 wireless in-ears, and 2 wireless guitars. And then we have a wireless click track. It's silly, I know. I'm obsessed with the clean stage, but the iPad has a click track. So we have a 3.5 millimeter wireless that goes to our mixer. That is the only system that we use live that is a 2.4 gigahertz wireless system. That means there's one going live. I personally would not use more than 3 2.4 gigahertz systems live. If you start doing, 4, 5, 6 2.4 gigahertz wireless systems, you are just begging for problems. But again, with that 2.4 gigahertz wireless that I use for our iPad, for our click track, this next tip actually is, I'm pretty sure the reason why this works is that our singer brings his Wi-Fi router. And what he did actually is with dual band routers, what a dual band router means, it transmits in 2.4 as well as 5 gigahertz, not 5.8, 5, which is the whole 1000 megahertz frequency. And what he did is he turned off 2.4 on his dual band router. So it's not a dual band router anymore. It transmits in 5G instead of just 2.4. So if you're using a router and you're using 2.4 gear, most routers have the ability for you to shut off the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi network, and it only connects using the 5G network. If you don't have the ability to do that with your Wi-Fi router, so if it's like a single band router and it's just on 2.4, you can still program what channel you want it to transmit on. So if you know that your Wi-Fi router is transmitting in channel 1 on 2.4, then you can know to set your wireless to transmit on channel 6. Because remember, 1, 6, and 11 are the non-overlapping frequencies. So you're going to have a better chance of those systems working because you're choosing the 3 non-overlapping channels. Again, that's assuming that there's nothing else going on in the Wi-Fi environment and the wireless environment at the venue that you're at. But that is a way to improve your chances. And the last tip that I have is have another system that is in a different frequency. So a lot of these, especially with the cheap wireless systems like the guitar and the bass systems, those are very cheap. You can get a 2.4 gigahertz system for like $40. I'm about to talk price point here in a minute. There's one that I usually recommend to people by SWIFF Audio. It's $50 and it transmits in the 900 megahertz frequency band. So if you get to the venue and 2.4 is taken, use a different wireless that is on a different frequency. So if 2.4 is already taken and you try to switch to another 2.4 system, it's probably not going to work. So I did a whole video actually on this explaining the value of if you buy cheap gear, you should have multiple systems in multiple frequency bands. So check that out to find more details about it. It can't hurt, especially with how cheap a lot of these items are. You might as well have them on multiple frequency bands. So if 2.4 is taken, or if 5.8 is taken, if you get to a place and 5.8 is really taken, your 2.4 might actually be clear. So the more options that you have for different frequencies to transmit on, the better the chances that you're going to find a wireless that works. And because they're so cheap, it's definitely affordable to be able to buy too. Check out that video where I go into more detail about that. Oh my God, I need to stretch. Okay, so what are my recommendations as far as gear that you should get in 2.4? To me, again, I don't think 2.4 is worthless. I think it's completely still usable. If you have to have 10 different in-ear monitor mixes, you should not be buying 10 different 2.4 gigahertz wireless systems all transmitting on different channels. But if I'm playing like a solo set or something like that, or everyone else is wired in your band and you just want to use a 2.4 gigahertz wireless in-ear monitor system or microphone, that's totally fine. But here's kind of where I'm at with it. I would not pay a lot of money for a 2.4 gigahertz wireless system because of its limited number of channels and that the fact that the wireless network is already crowded. Like I said, I still use that LEKATO 3.5 millimeter wireless all the time at all the shows. I understand that's a risk when I use 2.4 gigahertz. I suggest that you do the same and understand that it can work, but if it's mission critical for you to be able to be wireless or have in-ears or whatever, I would definitely recommend getting something different. But what do I recommend for price point for some of these? Okay, so first of all, basically the one that I think is too expensive is the Shure GLX system. So I did a whole review on it, and I mentioned that I don't think that they should have done it in 2.4. I should have been more strict about how much I said. I don't think it makes sense to spend this much money on a 2.4 gigahertz system. It's just too much money for something that is not as reliable. If you look at their entry level one, which is the Shure BLX series, you can still use about 12 of those at once. I mean, that's in ideal conditions, but that is a cheaper system and it's not on 2.4. I've reviewed every Shure model. I have a whole video playlist on it. I use Shure mics all the time. They're fantastic. GLX is just way too high priced for being in 2.4 gigahertz. Either get the BLX as an entry level one or go to the SLX for spend just a tiny bit more to have way more reliability with that one, or go crazy and get the QLX or ULX and really have a very nice system with tons of bandwidth and frequency and RF tuning bandwidth and all that stuff. For all this gear I'm going to recommend, I'll post links down in the description down below. They are Amazon affiliate links. It's a free way to support the channel at no extra cost to you. So thank you if you do end up using them. But I like this one. This is the one by GETARIA. There's also one by LEKATO. It's basically the same thing, but they're like 40 bucks, you know? I've seen them on sale for like $30 sometimes. They drop onto sale. $30 for a wireless that's going to work probably 90% of the time, depending on the environment. That's totally fair. But if you're looking around at cheap stuff, you might notice this one by XVIVE, which I've reviewed a lot of their products. They do some really good stuff. This was actually the very first one of these wireless that I got, these little portable plug and play wireless systems. That's $150. To me, it doesn't make sense. I can get this one for $40, you know, that has about 4 channels. The X5 has 4 channels and it's $150. That's priced too high when you can get cheaper ones for about a third of the price for basically the same system. However, there is one by NUX. I have 2 of them. This is 2.4 and this is 5.8. That's why there's a blue sticker on it. But it has a carrying case with it. So the wireless actually lives in here and the case charges the wireless. So you can see when I push that button, it's starting to charge the wireless now. And the case actually has like a battery in it and charges the wireless. Really cool system. But this one's $150 and it comes with a nice carrying case that charges the wireless. It works better with active pickups and stuff like that. That one I definitely think is worth it at $150 to get more accessories like that. But if not, spending, you know, $40 for a wireless is completely fair in my opinion. You just have to set your expectations. If you're about to play an arena and you're trying to play a show with $40 wireless, there's nothing I can say that's going to help you if you have that kind of logic. So you might see this one. This is by Boss. This is the WL20. This is the second one that I ever got actually, and I did review it as well. This one is cool because you can stick them together and then it scans for the best channel. That is really nice and it's built a lot more solid than the other cheaper ones. It's well built and it has a longer battery life. I think by 3 or 4 hours longer. The system is about $200 at the time of shooting this. I don't know if the scanning feature is worth paying an extra $150 compared to just getting one of these cheaper ones. Just my 2 cents on that. Okay, so what about for in-ear monitor systems? So there's some in-ear monitor systems that I've reviewed on this channel that are on 2.4 gigahertz. So there's this one by XVIVE, the U4, which is a great little system. It's super portable. This is the transmitter, this is the receiver. And I also reviewed one by KIMAFUN, which is very similar. It has less features. Well, this is the transmitter, this is the receiver. Comes with earbuds and everything. So I've seen the KIMAFUN be anywhere from 100 to 150, and I've seen the XVIVE one go from anywhere from 150 up to 250. I think 250 is a little high priced for it, but it's usually around $200. I think those are very fairly priced because, you know, my nice Sennheiser system is $1,000 in-ear monitor system. The entry-level Shure one is about $800. So you're paying a lot less and you're paying for, you know, the compactability of that. I think those are fairly priced. I would not pay more than $300 for them though. That would be over the top. But this one I brought to a gig the first time, you know, because I test out all my gear before using it live so I can do a video about it. This was working and my singer, or not my singer, the guitar player's wireless was a GLX microphone. His GLX stopped working. It would not work at the venue we were playing. Mine worked flawlessly. Even this little guy is doing a better job than the Shure GLX system did at that show. The other thing, same guy, the other guitar player, he dropped his Shure wireless in-ear monitors. He has, the $800 in-ear monitors, and it stopped working, and I had this as a backup. That show where it broke was at a show playing in front of 50,000 people, and it worked fine. There were 6 of us on stage, tons of wireless in-ears, mics, and, instrument systems, and it still worked with all of that. But check out my video on both of those if you're interested. As far as wireless microphones, I would just avoid 2.4 gigahertz altogether. I just did a review on the PHENYX Pro PTU-1. That's a very affordable one for about $180. I would definitely check that one out. That's a really good system, true diversity wireless microphone. I don't really know of a good priced point 2.4 gigahertz wireless microphone system. The GLX is kind of the main one, and that's just too high priced for me. So I would either get the BLX by Shure or check out that PHENYX Pro one as far as microphones. So if you're still here, congratulations. Thanks for making it all the way through here. I hope it helped you out. If you did find this helpful, please do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. This was a ton of research and work to put together. It would do me a huge favor. I hate asking for it, but it really, really, really does help feed the YouTube algorithm and stuff like that. So thank you for doing that. Again, links to purchase everything that I just talked about down below. However, I am going to be giving away a free pair of these Listener Pro wireless in-ear monitor systems. So I actually reviewed it. So go check it out, if you want to watch my review on it. It's a really interesting system. It is in 2.4. They do have 30 different channels you can choose from, which is interesting because now that I know that there's only 11 that, 2.4 technically lives in, I'm very curious how they got 30. But, I test out all my gear, and this did work very well live at the gigs that I used it at. It's just I haven't been using it, so I'd rather give it to you guys because I'm really grateful for all my subscribers, and it's just really cool to see the growth, and I love to give back. So if someone can use this, I would definitely rather give this to you. I think the main thing about this that stopped me from using it doesn't have a knob to twist to turn up the volume. You have to go in here and push, and it's kind of like a digital thing. That was the only thing that kept me from using it. So if this is something that you are interested in, all you have to do to enter the contest is to, 1, be a subscriber. You have to be a subscriber. And 2nd is just leave a comment down below in this video description. You can say whatever you want. For the first 5 days after this video comes out, if you leave a comment, you'll be entered to win this wireless in-ear monitor system. It's like a $250 in-ear monitor system, and I'll do the drawing in the video next week. So best of luck. Thank you guys again for watching. That is basically it. Again, please hit the like button if you found this content helpful, if you learned something. Also, extra resources will be in the description, and some of the sources that I found while doing the research for this video are linked down there as well. Check out some of my other videos. I've done a ton of reviews on cheap gear, wireless, mics, instruments, in-ear monitor systems, stuff like that. So check out some of those videos by clicking the links on your screen now. Don't forget to follow me on my social media pages. That's Scott Yule Music on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Instagram being my favorite out of all of those. Again, check out some of those videos by clicking the link on your screen now. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Where the f is that graph?